In the farthest corners of the galaxy, there existed a single rule every intelligent species obeyed. Never provoke the Varkh dominion. The Varkh were not diplomats. They were conquerors born from a death world covered in volcanic oceans and poisoned skies. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, armored in black scales stronger than steel, they had crushed entire civilizations for thousands of years. The galaxy feared many things: pirates, rogue AI, ancient predators drifting between stars. But nothing inspired terror like the arrival of Varkh warships. Entire planets surrendered the moment their shadow appeared in orbit. The Thalirians lost 3 moons fighting them. The synthetic Nexar Collective calculated a 99.7% probability of extinction and surrendered within 11 minutes. Even the proud Keth Empire, the strongest military power in known space, collapsed after a single year of war. Every species feared the Varkh. Every species, except one. But humanity had not yet entered galactic history. At the time, Earth was considered insignificant, primitive. The Galactic Council classified humans as a developing species and ignored them completely, which was exactly why nobody noticed when a small Varkh scouting fleet entered the Sol system. The fleet commander, General Kroth, stared at Earth from the bridge of his warship with amusement glowing in his reptilian eyes. "So this is humanity," he growled. A hologram displayed human statistics. Average height weak. Natural weapons none. Military technology outdated. Population divided by nations. Kroth laughed, a deep monstrous sound that echoed through the bridge. "They are prey pretending to be civilized." Around him, the crew rumbled in agreement. The Varkh had encountered thousands of species. Some were intelligent. Some were brave. Some were dangerous. Humans appeared to be none of those things. "Prepare the surrender transmission," Kroth ordered. Moments later, every satellite, television, military network, and communication device on Earth lit up with the same horrifying image. A gigantic reptilian face staring down at humanity. Panic spread instantly. Cities froze. Governments activated emergency protocols. Families crowded around screens in terrified silence. Then Kroth spoke. "People of Earth, your species now belongs to the Varkh Dominion. Resist, and your oceans will boil beneath orbital fire." Across the planet, fear took hold. But something unexpected happened. Humanity did not surrender. Instead, world leaders demanded time. Not for negotiations, for preparation. Kroth found it hilarious. "These creatures actually believe they can fight us," he sneered. For 3 days, the Varkh waited in orbit while humanity prepared defenses that the aliens already knew were hopeless. Missiles, jet fighters, railguns, primitive, pathetic. On the 4th day, Kroth ordered the invasion to begin. Thousands of dropships descended toward Earth's major cities. The first target was New York. People screamed as enormous black ships darkened the sky. Varkh soldiers smashed through streets like unstoppable beasts, their armor shrugging off bullets effortlessly. Human tanks exploded within seconds. Entire battalions vanished under plasma fire. To the Varkh, it felt less like war and more like extermination. General Kroth watched the destruction proudly. "This world falls within hours." Then a human soldier tackled one of his elite warriors off a burning vehicle. Kroth barely noticed at first, until the human kept fighting after losing an arm. The Varkh warrior slammed the human through concrete walls. The human got back up, again and again, bleeding, broken, still attacking. The Varkh soldier finally killed him with a plasma blade through the chest. But even while dying, the human pulled a grenade and detonated both of them. The bridge fell silent. Kroth narrowed his eyes. "That one was defective," a crew member muttered nervously. But reports soon flooded in from across Earth. Humans fighting after impossible injuries. Civilians attacking armed Varkh with bare hands. Pilots crashing damaged aircraft directly into enemy ships. Soldiers refusing retreat orders even when surrounded. One message repeated through every battlefield transmission. "Hold the line." The Varkh had conquered stronger species, smarter species, more advanced species. But they had never encountered a race willing to fight like this. For the first time in centuries, the Varkh felt something unfamiliar, unease, and deep beneath the burning skies of Earth, humanity was only beginning to show the galaxy what humans truly were. Earth burned. Across every continent, cities drowned beneath smoke and plasma fire as the Varkh Dominion pushed deeper into human territory. Their war machines towered above shattered highways, and their soldiers marched through ruins with terrifying confidence. To the Varkh, victory was inevitable. But something was wrong. Humans refused to surrender. General Croth stood aboard his flagship, staring at casualty reports with growing irritation. "Repeat those numbers." A nervous officer lowered his head. "We have lost 7,000 warriors in the last 12 hours. Croth's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Against primitives?" "Yes, General." "Impossible." The Varkh had conquered entire civilizations with fewer losses than this. Yet humanity kept fighting in ways the galaxy considered insane. In London, human soldiers trapped beneath collapsing buildings continued firing until their ammunition ran dry. In Tokyo, civilians formed evacuation lines while missiles fell around them. In Moscow, wounded troops detonated bridges beneath advancing Varkh armor. Every battle became a nightmare, not because humans were stronger, but because they would not stop. The Galactic Council watched the invasion through live transmissions, expecting Earth to collapse within days. Instead, they saw humans turning every street into a battlefield. A Thalirian senator whispered in disbelief. "They fight like cornered predators." "No," another replied quietly. "Predators know when to retreat." Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Elias Ward led the remains of the 22nd Marine Battalion through the ruins of Chicago. The city was almost gone. Skyscrapers burned like giant torches against the dark sky. Alien dropships roared overhead while civilians hid underground in freezing subway tunnels. Elias was exhausted. His left shoulder bled through torn armor, and nearly half his battalion was dead. Yet nobody talked about surrender. A young Marine beside him nervously reloaded his rifle. "Captain, do you think we can actually win?" Before Elias could answer, explosions shook the street ahead. Varkh troops, dozens of them, towering reptilian warriors advanced through the smoke carrying plasma cannons. The young Marine froze. Fear consumed his face. Elias grabbed the soldier by the shoulder. "Listen to me," he said calmly. "They think fear makes us weak." The Varkh opened fire. Buildings exploded apart. Concrete rained from the sky. Then Elias stood up from cover and charged. The Marines followed him instantly. Bullets slammed against alien armor while rockets streaked through the ruined streets. Humans attacked with a fury the Varkh could not understand. One Marine kept fighting after losing both legs. Another used a burning vehicle as cover while protecting trapped civilians behind him. The battle became savage, close, brutal, and for the first time in Varkh history, their soldiers began retreating. General Croth watched the battlefield feed in stunned silence. "They're falling back?" he growled. "Yes, General. Human resistance is stronger than projected." Croth smashed a metal console apart with one clawed fist. "How?" No one answered, because the truth terrified them. Humans weren't fighting for conquest. They were fighting for home, and that made them dangerous beyond calculation. Hours later, another report arrived from Earth orbit. 3 human fighter jets had launched a suicide attack against a Varkh destroyer. Primitive aircraft against advanced warships. It should have been meaningless. But the human pilots ignored impossible odds, flying directly through defensive fire. One jet exploded instantly. The second lost control and crashed into space debris. But the third pilot reached the destroyer. The transmission from the cockpit played across Croth's bridge. Static crackled. Heavy breathing echoed. Then the human pilot spoke calmly. "If Earth falls, you're coming with us." The jet slammed into the destroyer's reactor core. A massive explosion tore the alien ship apart. Silence filled the bridge. Even hardened Varkh officers stared in disbelief. One whispered the unthinkable. "These creatures are not afraid to die." General Croth slowly looked toward Earth burning beneath them. For the first time in centuries, the conqueror of galaxies felt uncertainty, because humanity was teaching the Varkh a terrifying lesson. A species willing to die for each other could become impossible to defeat. The war for Earth entered its third week. By then, the Varkh Dominion had expected humanity to collapse entirely. No species in galactic history had resisted this long against a full-scale Varkh invasion. Yet Earth still fought. Not because humans were winning, but because every time the Varkh thought humanity was broken, humans became even more dangerous. General Croth stood inside the command chamber of his flagship, staring at holographic maps covered in red resistance zones. Entire regions that should have fallen days ago were still active. Human forces kept reappearing. Every destroyed defense line became another ambush. Every retreat became a trap. The Varkh were beginning to hate Earth. "This planet makes no sense," one officer muttered. Croth remained silent. Deep down, he knew the officer was right. Humans ignored logic. They fought while starving. They fought while surrounded. They fought even after defeat was certain. And now something worse was happening. The humans were adapting. Captured Varkh weapons were being reverse-engineered at terrifying speed. Human engineers modified alien plasma rifles into brutal close-range weapons. Scientists learned how to overload Varkh energy shields using crude electromagnetic pulses. The prey was learning. Fast. Then came the event that changed the entire war. In the ruins of Sao Paulo, a Varkh patrol discovered hundreds of civilians hiding beneath a collapsed hospital. General Croth gave the order without hesitation. "Erase the structure." The Varkh obeyed. Orbital plasma fire rained from the sky. The hospital disappeared in a storm of flames. Thousands died instantly. For several minutes, Earth went silent. Then humanity snapped. Across the globe, military frequencies exploded with furious transmissions. Soldiers who had been retreating suddenly counterattacked. Civilian volunteers flooded recruitment centers faster than governments could process them. Factories stopped producing consumer goods and began manufacturing weapons 24 hours a day. Even criminal organizations joined the war effort. One message spread across every human communication network: no more retreat. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humanity transformed almost overnight. Until then, humans had fought to survive. Now they fought with rage. And the galaxy finally learned why that was terrifying. Captain Elias Ward witnessed it firsthand in Chicago. The exhausted survivors of his battalion had barely slept in days when reports arrived about the hospital massacre. Nobody spoke afterward. The Marines simply checked their weapons in silence. One young soldier looked at Elias. "What are our orders, Captain?" Elias stared at the burning skyline. His voice was cold now. "We push them back." Hours later, human forces launched the largest counterattack of the war. Thousands of soldiers surged through ruined streets under artillery fire, while fighter jets screamed across the skies above them. The Varkh were stunned. Humans attacked without fear, without hesitation. A wounded Marine tackled a Varkh warrior off a rooftop while laughing. A group of civilians rammed explosive-filled trucks into alien armor columns. Human snipers continued firing even while entire buildings collapsed around them. The battlefield became chaos. Brutal. Savage. Unstoppable. General Croth watched the reports arrive faster than his officers could process them. Entire Varkh battalions were disappearing. Dropships were being shot from the sky. Human resistance groups attacked supply lines nonstop, never allowing the invaders to rest. Then a transmission arrived from a frontline commander. The terrified Varkh officer's voice shook violently. "General, the humans are chasing us." Croth froze. "What?" "They keep advancing even after suffering massive casualties. We cannot stop them." In all Varkh history, no species had ever hunted them. The Dominion were the hunters, the monsters beneath the stars. But now, humanity was becoming something worse. That night, for the first time in centuries, Varkh soldiers abandoned positions without orders. Fear spread through the invasion fleet. Rumors whispered through alien ranks. Humans felt no pain. Humans could not be broken. Humans became stronger when angry. None of it was true. But war did not need truth, only fear. And as Earth burned beneath the stars, the galaxy began realizing something horrifying. The Varkh Dominion had invaded the wrong world. The Varkh Dominion had conquered over 300 worlds. They had defeated empires with superior technology, destroyed species physically stronger than humans, broken civilizations older than Earth itself. Yet now, inside the war rooms of the Dominion fleet, fear spread like disease, because the humans refused to behave like prey. General Croth stared at the latest battlefield reports with growing disbelief. Human forces were no longer merely resisting. They were evolving. Every encounter with the Varkh made humanity deadlier. Human engineers learned how to track cloaked ships within days. Alien plasma weapons were modified into portable artillery. Destroyed Varkh armor was reforged into human combat gear. It was as if humanity had been preparing for this war their entire existence. Then the Dominion uncovered something terrifying. A captured human officer finally revealed Earth's military history during interrogation. At first, the Varkh expected information about alliances or hidden weapons. Instead, they learned the truth about humanity itself. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. World wars, civil wars, revolutions, religious conflicts, proxy wars, entire centuries soaked in blood. The Varkh interrogator stared in stunned silence as records displayed human history in horrifying detail. One species. Endless war. Humanity had nearly driven itself extinct multiple times before ever reaching the stars. The interrogator quietly asked the prisoner, "If your species is this violent, how are you still alive?" The wounded human laughed weakly through broken teeth. "Because surviving hell is what we do best." When the report reached General Croth, silence consumed the bridge. The realization hit the Dominion officers all at once. The humans were not inexperienced prey. Earth itself had trained them. Every human soldier alive came from a species shaped by conflict, disaster, and suffering. Pain was normal to them. Loss was familiar. War was in their history. And now the galaxy understood why humans fought so differently. The Varkh feared death. Humans accepted it. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Elias Ward and the remaining Marines pushed through the frozen ruins of northern Canada. A hidden Varkh communication facility had been discovered beneath an occupied city. If destroyed, it could cripple Dominion coordination across the planet. The mission was nearly suicidal, which meant Human Command approved it instantly. Snowstorms howled through shattered streets as Elias led his team toward the facility. The city was silent except for distant explosions. Beside him walked Sergeant Mira Kane, one of the few survivors from the original battalion. She checked her rifle carefully. "You ever think about what happens if we lose?" she asked quietly. Elias looked ahead. "No. Why not?" "Because if humanity survives this, the galaxy changes forever." Before Mira could answer, alarms screamed through the ruins. Varkh patrols. Dozens of them. Massive armored warriors emerged from the snow carrying plasma cannons. The humans opened fire instantly. The battle erupted violently. Snow turned red beneath plasma blasts. Buildings collapsed under heavy weapons fire. One Marine lost his weapon and attacked a Varkh soldier with a combat knife instead. Another continued transmitting enemy positions even after being mortally wounded. The Varkh could not understand it. Humans fought like survival itself depended on every second. Because to them, it did. Finally, Elias and Mira reached the underground communication core. Gigantic alien machinery pulsed beneath the facility, transmitting invasion commands across Earth. Mira planted explosives rapidly while Elias held the doorway against advancing Varkh troops. Plasma rounds tore through the walls around him. A Varkh warrior charged forward. Elias emptied his rifle into the creature's chest, then tackled it into the reactor chamber below. Both disappeared into sparks and fire. "Captain!" Mira screamed. Elias's voice crackled through comms. "Detonate it now." Mira hesitated only 1 second. Then she pressed the trigger. A massive explosion ripped through the underground complex. The entire city shook as the Varkh communication network collapsed across half the planet. For the first time since the invasion began, the Dominion lost control. And aboard his flagship, General Croth finally understood the horrifying truth. Humanity wasn't dangerous because they were stronger. Humanity was dangerous because suffering had taught them how to endure anything. The destruction of the Varkh communication network changed everything. For the first time since the invasion began, Dominion forces across Earth were isolated. Entire battalions lost contact with orbiting fleets. Supply routes collapsed into chaos. And humanity struck immediately. Human commanders understood something the Varkh did not. An enemy in confusion becomes vulnerable. Across the planet, coordinated human counterattacks erupted like wildfire. In Europe, resistance fighters ambushed stranded Varkh convoys inside ruined cities. In Asia, stolen alien weapons were turned against Dominion landing zones. In the Pacific, human submarines destroyed Varkh supply carriers from beneath storm-covered oceans. The invaders were no longer hunting. Now they were surviving. General Croth watched disaster unfold aboard his flagship. "How many sectors have gone dark?" he demanded. A terrified officer answered quietly. 32, General." Croth's claws tightened around the command console hard enough to crack metal. Impossible. The Varkh Dominion did not lose control. The Dominion did not retreat. Yet battlefield reports became worse every hour. Human guerrilla forces appeared everywhere. Civilians sabotaged alien equipment. Captured Varkh soldiers vanished inside resistance territories and were never seen again. Earth itself seemed to be fighting back. Then came the footage that spread fear through the entire Dominion fleet. A Varkh patrol in Berlin had cornered a group of human civilians inside a destroyed subway station. Among them were children. The Varkh commander ordered execution. Before the soldiers could fire, a single human emerged from the darkness. An older man. No armor. No military uniform. Just a firefighter's jacket covered in ash and blood. The Varkh laughed at him. Until the human charged. Security footage showed the man attacking armed Varkh warriors with nothing but a steel rescue axe. Even after being shot repeatedly, he kept moving. One Varkh fell. Then another. The civilians escaped while the human held the line alone. The recording ended with the station collapsing on top of him after he detonated emergency fuel lines. Silence spread through the Dominion command deck after the footage ended. One officer whispered nervously, "Why do they keep sacrificing themselves?" No one answered. Because the truth frightened them. Humans protected each other instinctively. Not because they were ordered to. Because they chose to. Meanwhile, deep beneath the ruins of Chicago, Sergeant Mira Kane recovered from the explosion that destroyed the communication facility. Captain Elias Ward was presumed dead. Most of the battalion was gone. But the mission had succeeded. As Mira walked through underground refugee shelters, civilians stared at the exhausted soldiers with something new in their eyes. Hope. For weeks, humanity had only survived. Now humanity was pushing back. A young girl approached Mira quietly and handed her a small paper flag covered in dirt. "Thank you," the child whispered. Mira froze. The simple words hit harder than any battlefield wound. For the first time since the invasion began, she remembered what they were fighting for. Not revenge. Not hatred. Home. Suddenly alarms echoed through the shelter. Incoming Varkh forces. The refugees panicked instantly. Mira grabbed her rifle and moved toward the entrance tunnels with the remaining soldiers. Outside, dozens of Varkh warriors advanced through the frozen streets supported by heavy armor. The humans were outnumbered badly. One soldier looked at Mira nervously. "We can't stop all of them." Mira raised her weapon calmly. "We don't need to stop them forever." The first explosions shook the street. Humans opened fire from windows, rooftops, and collapsed buildings. Every inch of ground became deadly. The Varkh advanced brutally through gunfire. Then something unexpected happened. Civilian volunteers joined the fight. Teachers, construction workers, mechanics, ordinary humans carrying homemade explosives and stolen plasma rifles. The Varkh hesitated. They could no longer tell soldiers apart from civilians. Every human became a threat, and that terrified them. Hours later, the Dominion assault finally broke apart. For the first time in recorded history, Varkh forces abandoned an attack against a weaker species. General Croth watched the retreat in stunned silence. The monsters of the galaxy were falling back from Earth. And deep within himself, Croth felt the emotion he once believed only prey could experience: fear. The Varkh Dominion had invaded Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a nightmare. Across the galaxy, news of the war spread rapidly. Every species watched humanity with growing disbelief as the so-called primitive world continued resisting the most feared empire in existence. At first, the Galactic Council assumed Earth would eventually fall. Then the impossible happened. Humanity launched attacks beyond their own planet. General Croth received the first report aboard his flagship during the middle of a strategy meeting. A supply station near Mars had gone silent. Minutes later, another report arrived. 2 Varkh destroyers destroyed near Saturn. Then another, and another. Croth slammed his fist against the command table. How are they reaching our fleets? No one knew. Because humans had begun using captured Varkh technology in ways the Dominion never imagined possible. Human engineers ripped navigation systems from crashed alien ships. Scientists reverse-engineered plasma reactors within weeks. Civilian programmers hacked Varkh communication codes using stolen AI systems. The Dominion's own technology was being turned against them. And humanity learned frighteningly fast. Soon, human strike teams started appearing throughout the solar system. Fast, aggressive, unpredictable. Unlike traditional galactic militaries, humans ignored established rules of warfare entirely. They hid explosives inside drifting debris fields, used damaged ships as suicide weapons, turned mining stations into hidden military bases. Every human tactic felt chaotic. But it worked. The Varkh began suffering losses faster than they could replace them. Then came the attack that shocked the galaxy. A small human fleet appeared near one of the Dominion's orbital shipyards above Jupiter. Against all logic, the humans attacked immediately. The Varkh defenders laughed at first. 5 stolen human-modified cruisers against an entire military shipyard was suicide. Then the humans rammed the station directly. Massive explosions tore through the orbital docks as hidden explosives detonated across the structure. Human boarding teams stormed into the chaos before the fires even stopped burning. The battle became savage inside the corridors. Close-range gunfire, hand-to-hand combat, explosions tearing open sections of the station into space. The humans fought like they had already accepted death before arriving. And that made them terrifying. General Croth watched live combat footage in horror. One human marine continued advancing after his armor caught fire. Another dragged wounded teammates through vacuum-exposed corridors while under plasma fire. A human pilot deliberately crashed his damaged ship into the shipyard reactor while screaming, "For Earth!" The reactor detonated seconds later. The entire orbital facility vanished in nuclear fire. Silence consumed the bridge. A young Varkh officer whispered shakily, "They attacked a superior force willingly." Croth stared at the burning wreckage floating near Jupiter. Until now, the Dominion had still believed humanity could eventually be crushed through overwhelming force. But this changed everything. Because humans were no longer defending Earth. They were hunting the Dominion itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, Sergeant Mira Kane stood beside thousands of exhausted soldiers gathered near the ruins of an old military airfield. Snow fell quietly across destroyed runways while damaged human and alien ships prepared for launch. Humanity was building its first true resistance fleet. It was crude, dangerous, barely functional, but every ship carried human pilots ready to fight. Mira looked toward the stars above. Weeks ago, humanity had feared the galaxy. Now humanity was preparing to enter it. Suddenly, a transmission echoed across every nearby frequency. Static crackled. Then a familiar voice spoke. "This is Captain Elias Ward requesting permission to land." Mira froze. The soldiers around her stared upward in disbelief. A damaged Varkh shuttle descended slowly through the clouds. Its engines burned violently as it crashed onto the runway. The hatch opened, and Elias stepped out alive. Wounded, exhausted, but alive. The soldiers erupted into cheers. Mira ran toward him through the snow. "You're supposed to be dead," she said breathlessly. Elias gave a tired smile. "I got better," but his expression soon darkened. "The Varkh are preparing something bigger," he warned. "How big?" Elias looked toward the sky where distant stars shimmered above the burning earth. "Big enough to wipe out humanity forever." And far beyond Earth's atmosphere, the full Dominion war fleet had finally begun arriving. The Dominion war fleet arrived above Earth like a living nightmare. Thousands of Varkh warships emerged from hyperspace, covering the skies from horizon to horizon. Giant shadow-like vessels blocked sunlight across entire continents. People everywhere looked upward in silence. This was not an invasion anymore. It was extermination. General Croth stood aboard the Dominion flagship watching Earth rotate beneath him. The humans had humiliated the Varkh Dominion, destroyed shipyards, captured technology, forced elite warriors to retreat. That embarrassment would now end. "The fleet is ready, General," an officer announced. Croth's voice became cold. "Erase their species." Across Earth, emergency alarms screamed through every remaining city. Human resistance forces prepared for humanity's final stand. Sergeant Mira Kane stood beside Captain Elias Ward inside the underground command bunker beneath London. Massive holograms displayed the incoming fleet. The numbers were hopeless. Humanity possessed only a handful of stolen warships and damaged defenses. Against the full Dominion armada, they had no chance. One officer spoke quietly. "We can't beat this." Silence filled the bunker. Then Elias stepped forward. "We're not trying to beat them." Everyone looked at him. Elias stared at the hologram of the massive fleet above Earth. "We're trying to make sure they never forget us." Those words spread rapidly across human military channels. And somehow, they gave people strength. Around the world, humanity prepared for war. Not because victory was possible, but because surrender was impossible. The first Dominion attack began above Earth's orbit. Hundreds of Varkh destroyers descended through the atmosphere while orbital cannons fired toward major resistance zones. Human ships launched immediately to intercept them. The battle in space became chaos. Tiny human fighters weaved between giant alien cruisers at suicidal speeds. Captured Varkh weapons blasted through the darkness. Explosions lit the planet's orbit like burning stars. Human pilots ignored retreat orders constantly. One squadron deliberately flew inside the shield barrier of a Dominion battleship before detonating their reactors point-blank. Another human cruiser rammed directly into an enemy carrier, splitting both ships apart in orbit. The Galactic Council watched the battle live in absolute disbelief. No species fought like this. No species sacrificed themselves so willingly. A council elder whispered in horror. "The humans are terrifying." Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, millions fought beneath burning skies. Entire cities became battlefields. In Tokyo, civilians and soldiers defended evacuation routes together. In Cairo, human resistance fighters used underground tunnels to ambush Varkh armor columns. In New York, firefighters rescued trapped civilians, while plasma strikes destroyed buildings around them. Humanity refused to collapse, even while the world burned. Then came the moment that changed galactic history forever. A massive Dominion supercarrier descended above the Atlantic Ocean. The gigantic warship alone carried enough firepower to destroy entire continents. General Croth personally commanded it. "If Earth resists," he ordered calmly, "burn the oceans." But before the weapon could fire, hundreds of unidentified ships suddenly appeared behind the Dominion fleet. The Varkh officers froze. The ships belonged to multiple alien species across the galaxy. Council worlds, neutral systems, even former Dominion victims. Croth stared in disbelief. They would never unite, but they had, because humanity had inspired them. For centuries, every species had feared the Varkh Dominion. Humans were the first to fight back openly. And now the galaxy followed their example. Alien fleets charged into battle beside Earth. The skies erupted into the largest space war in galactic history. For the first time ever, the Dominion began losing. Captain Elias watched the battle from Earth's surface as burning wreckage fell through the atmosphere like meteors. Mira stared upward beside him. "They came," she whispered. Elias nodded slowly. "No," he said. "They finally stopped running." Far above them, the Dominion fleet started retreating sector by sector. General Croth watched the impossible unfold around him. The galaxy no longer feared the Varkh, because humanity had taught them something dangerous. Monsters can bleed, and once fear breaks, tyrants fall. The Battle of Earth lasted 3 days. 3 days of fire falling from the stars. 3 days of shattered fleets, burning cities, and desperate last stands across space itself. But when the smoke finally cleared, the Varkh Dominion was broken. The surviving Dominion warships fled beyond the outer systems, abandoning the invasion entirely. Across the galaxy, worlds once ruled through fear erupted into rebellion. Empires the Varkh had enslaved for centuries finally fought back. And it all began because one species refused to surrender. Humanity. Above Earth, thousands of wrecked ships drifted silently through orbit like graves among the stars. The cost of victory was enormous. Millions were dead. Entire cities reduced to ash. The planet itself scarred forever. Yet Earth still stood. And for humanity, that was enough. Captain Elias Ward stood on a ruined hillside overlooking what remained of London. Smoke rose through the cold morning air while rescue teams searched collapsed buildings below. Beside him stood Sergeant Mira Kane. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Mira broke the silence. "So what happens now?" Elias looked toward the stars above Earth. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt different, smaller somehow. "We rebuild," he answered quietly. Across the galaxy, leaders gathered for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. But this meeting was unlike any before it, because humanity had been invited. When Elias and Mira entered the massive council chamber days later, silence consumed the room. Hundreds of alien representatives watched them carefully, not with fear anymore, with respect. The same species once dismissed as primitive prey had defeated the most feared empire in existence. A council elder slowly stood. For centuries, the alien began. The galaxy believed fear was the only path to survival. The elder's ancient eyes focused on the humans. "Then your species proved us wrong." One by one, representatives from countless worlds rose to honor humanity. Some bowed. Others placed hands over their hearts. Several species openly wept, because Earth had done more than survive. Earth had given hope back to the galaxy. Then came the final revelation. Captured Dominion records revealed something shocking. The Varkh had originally planned to invade humanity decades later. But after observing human history, they attacked early. Why? Because they became afraid. Afraid of what humans might become if allowed to grow stronger among the stars. The realization stunned the entire council. Even the monsters of the galaxy had feared humanity's future. And now that future had arrived. Outside the council chamber, reporters and diplomats crowded around Elias as questions flooded toward him. One alien journalist asked the question the entire galaxy wanted answered. "Why do humans fight so hard?" Elias remained silent for a moment. Then he looked toward Earth shining in the distance beyond the station windows. "Because everything we love is fragile," he said softly. "Our families, our homes, our future." He looked back at the crowd. "And humans protect fragile things." The statement spread across the galaxy within hours. Soon it became more than words. It became legend. Years later, children on distant alien worlds would study the story of Earth's resistance. They would learn how one young species stood against impossible odds. How ordinary humans fought monsters beneath burning skies. How fear itself began dying the moment humanity refused to kneel. And throughout the galaxy, one truth became universally known. The aliens had feared every species, until they met humans. For more emotional HFY sci-fi stories, subscribe to the channel and join the next adventure among the stars.